Good morning. It is January 27th, 2021, and it is a Wednesday morning. And here we are gathering to absorb some wisdom. And I'm going to read to you from Nisargadatta this morning before we meditate. And then our meditation itself will actually include some of his words. In this section, he gives some really helpful practical advice about the practice itself. And I'm just going to read a few little sections from this book. Really, everyone should get this. I am that because I just teach from it all the time these days, but I'll also post all of this for you, all of this text. He says, watch your thoughts as you watch the street traffic. People come and go. You register these without response. It may not be easy in the beginning, but with some practice, you will find that your mind can function on many levels at the same time, and you can be aware of them all. It is only when you have a vested interest in any particular level that your attention gets caught in it and you black out on the other levels. Do not struggle with your memories and thoughts. Try only to include in your field of attention the other, more important questions like, who am I? How did I happen to be born? Whence this universe around me? What is real and what is momentary? No memory will persist if you lose interest in it. It is the emotional link that perpetuates the bondage. And then a little later on, he says, it is natural and good to love oneself. Only you should know exactly what it is that you love. It is not the body that you love. It is life. Perceiving, feeling, thinking, doing, loving, striving, creating. It is life that you love, which is you, which is all. Realize it in its totality beyond all divisions and limitations, and all your desires will merge in it, for the greater contains the smaller. Therefore, find yourself, for in finding that, you find all. Everybody is glad to be, but few know the fullness of it. You come to know by dwelling in your mind on I am, I know, I love, with the will of reaching the deepest meaning of these words. The student says, can I think I am God, right, as your mantra? He says, don't identify yourself with an idea. If by God you mean the unknown, then you merely say, I do not know what I am. If you know God, as you know yourself, you need not say it. Best is the simple feeling I am. Dwell on it patiently. Here, patience is wisdom. Don't think of failure. There can be no failure in this undertaking. Okay, and now get ready for a 20-minute or so guided meditation where I will do my best to assist my teacher in helping some of his words take root in your experience. And I will share actually a little bit more from the next paragraph from the book while we're in meditation. It should work pretty well as guidance inside. Arrive. Arrive into reality. Breathe. Allow yourself to belong to reality in the most natural way. These first two steps, arrive and breathe, make us available again to find that sense of I am. Most of the time, our love for the self and our love for the real can seem at odds. But today we're going to see if we can keep returning to the simple experience of being. Keep putting our attention here. because everything else that we're normally chasing after, all the pleasures we want and successes, everything we're running from, the pain we want to run away from, or the failures, when we really do the inquiry and do the practice, we find being, this beingness that you have is really the reason for anything that you want being possible. So in this meditation, we keep coming home to the beingness that is the cause of all the rest. Connect to care. You love yourself and you want yourself to be secure and happy. Don't be ashamed of it. Don't deny it. It is natural and good to love oneself. But here in meditation, we come to know exactly what it is that we so love. If we're just loving ideas or stories, then we're not really loving the thing itself. And so each time you bump up against a story, see if you can brush that aside or move past it or let it go. And directly love reality itself as it manifests through different beings and experiences. Today we're directing our attention to the feeling of I am, but you're welcome to add in that mantra, I am, or he gave us two others today. I am, I know, I love. You can choose one or play with a combination today. I like to link my mantra to my breath. That helps me keep coming back to the feeling helps me come and reach to the deepest meaning of the words. And now I'm just going to be quiet for a couple of minutes and allow you to cultivate your own practice here. Now, the words that will come next are messages directly from my teacher in response to his student asking what to do when his thoughts will not let him dwell patiently on the feeling of I am. He says, pay no attention. Don't fight them. Just do nothing about them. Let them be whatever they are. Your very fighting gives them life. Just disregard, look through. Remember to remember whatever happens, happens because I am. All reminds you that you are. Take full advantage of the fact that to experience, you must be. You need not stop thinking, just cease being interested. It is disinterestedness that liberates. Don't hold on. That is all. The world is made of rings. The hooks are all yours. Make your hooks straight, and nothing can hold you. Give up your addictions. There is nothing else to give up. Stop your routine of acquisitiveness, your habit of looking for results, and the freedom of the universe is yours. Be effortless. Be effortless. Be. right. So I shared with you some of this passage from my dear teacher Nisargadatta, and as often happens for me, um, in my preparation for my talk this week, I stumbled into some teachings from my teachers that were really, really helpful and poignant for me at the moment. And um, this section, every single sentence seemed to speak to me, and it's long. So I'm gonna probably keep teaching from this longer passage over the next couple of weeks and letting that inspire my teachings. The other thing that's inspiring my teaching today is a question from one of our dear, dear members, John Samuel. A really simple question, which was, can you talk more about step G in your meditation template, the ABCs? Step G, which is go forth. And thank you for that question, John Samuel. And I do plan on over the next few weeks also hopefully getting some more questions in or comments from you guys so that what I share here in these talks is really relevant and speaking to what you're curious about and what you're thinking about. Step G, when I teach the ABCs, is usually kind of glossed over a little bit. It's kind of this afterthought. It's what happens after the practice. And so I'm so glad that you brought this up, John Samuel, because the fact of the matter is step G is really how we're spending most of our lives. And I'd be curious to hear from you either, toward the end of this talk when I open it up for question in 10 minutes or so, or, later in our discussions. But I would love to hear more about what the challenges are for you in particular around step G. But your question has made me think over the last few days, what are my challenges? And the number one challenge that comes up for me when it comes to, or at the root of the challenges, at the core of it, that come up for me when I am transitioning from meditation into the rest of my day, or transitioning from doing an online course or being on retreat to kind of going back into something that seems more like normal life. These transitions from deep practice time into lifetime, from rest time, perhaps we might say, to action time. And I realized that my really big challenges there are the exact same challenges I have really any time that I need to transition. That fluid transitions are actually pretty hard for me in a lot of ways. Going from an activity that has a certain kind of energy, that has a certain kind of structure, maybe has certain kinds of company. All the whole context around practice time is different than the context around, say, going to work. And so kind of for your own inquiry, and I'm going to just share a little bit about what I've been doing for myself as I've been contemplating this and contemplating your question and how to do a better job at addressing step G as I teach in the future. I think, and doing kind of an inquiry around what are the factors, like what are really all the factors of your practice time, from the physical environment and that candle you might light, or the kind of physical space you're in, the energy of that space, and time. How are you relating to time when you're in practice? What other energies are around influencing you, and what other energies are absent? So those are the kind of the 3 points of the inquiry: space, time, and energy, right? What's the space like? And I'll put all of these below with this when I post it in a little bit. What is the space like? What is time like here? And what are the energies that are influencing you or not? And then think about what you're transitioning into. What's the next thing you're going to? What is that space like? What does time feel like here? What's your relationship to the space? What's your relationship to the time? And then what's your relationship to the different sort of energies of the work? Of course, there's all sorts of other things that you'll notice if you start to do this inquiry. You'll naturally notice, oh, I don't have caffeine, for instance, maybe until I go to work. Maybe that has something to do with the shift in my relationship to space, time, and energy, right? The anxiety that perhaps that new activity brings up. But looking at the context and looking at what we're asking ourselves to leap between. And you'll probably notice, as I have, as I started doing this, there's a lot of factors. And I really do ask myself to take huge leaps in between spaces. And then, of course, the follow-up inquiry would be to see, what can I do to make those transitions more fluid for myself? Or maybe there needs to be, this is just a for instance, but um, when I lived in Brooklyn before I moved out to the country, I took it for total granted. I biked everywhere or walked. That transition was really different than once I moved up into the mountains, in upstate New York, and was driving for my transitions, or I was just doing everything out of my house or on my farm. And I started to have to, like, in between meetings, go on a walk and come back because I realized how much what I did in the interim period before was really helping me make those transitions between contexts, between environments, between activities. There are all sorts of things you're probably already doing unconsciously to help you shift, right? For instance, the coffee, right? It's a really easy way to kind of shift into into work mode, right? And sometimes it's really valuable to say, okay, I've been doing this as my kind of initiation into the next part of my day. This is the thing that pushes me into my leap to switch gears. But is there something else that can bring me that energy or help me transition and do a better job at that? And, those of you who are doing the 21-day course, many people said, gosh, it was just so good to have a routine. And a lot of what you were doing was bringing awareness to this very thing. Your morning routine involving your meditation, right? That's how you transition from sleep from yesterday into today. But that keeps happening throughout the day. And I know for me that a lot of one of my obstacles are a lot of the time is I have stories about which parts of the day I like. I have stories about which parts of the day, are good and which ones are bad, which ones are my treat and which ones are the work and the effort. And that will often trap me and make it really difficult to make those transitions. And so again, finding transition gestures and moments and rituals that themselves feel good, that feel like treats, that feel like that once we come to honor that these transition moments are gifts to ourselves, it can really, really help. There was a lot of teachings that I was going to bring in today about transitions, and I'm not going to actually go too deeply into them, but I'll just give you a little taste. We talk a lot about the importance of seasons, right? Importance of being in nature and the importance of belonging to something that has rhythm. And this just from the Tao Te Ching. There is a time for being ahead, a time for being behind, a time for being in motion, a time for being at rest, a time for being vigorous, a time for being exhausted, a time for being safe, a time for being in danger. And so if we can practice what we were doing in our meditation today, of coming back to just the feeling of being, remembering that it's life that we love, it's this being thing that makes all this other stuff possible. Then when we're in a part of the day that's hard, or a season of the year that's hard, or a chapter of life that might last more than 1 year, that if we can keep returning to that original gift of being and start to really make peace with the fact that we are called sometimes to action and sometimes to rest. We are called to create safety and to just feel safe, really safe and good and whole. And then there are times when we're in danger. That's part of nature too, that we're hooked up to experience that. And miraculously from like the very next part of this Nisargadatta section, I'll share this. Your balance must be dynamic, based on doing just the right thing from moment to moment. Don't be a child unwilling to grow up. Rely entirely on your clarity of thought, purity of motive, and integrity of action. You cannot possibly go wrong. He says, now this was really important for me to hear. You want something like around the clock ecstasy. Ecstasies come and go necessarily, for the human brain cannot stand the tension for a long time. A prolonged ecstasy will burn out your brain unless it is extremely pure and subtle. In nature, nothing is at a standstill. Everything pulsates, appears, and disappears. Heart, breath, digestion, sleeping and waking, birth and death. Everything comes and goes in waves. Rhythm, periodicity, harmonious alternation of extremes is the rule. No use rebelling against the very pattern of life. No particular thought can be the mind's natural state, only silence. When the mind is in its natural state, it reverts to silence spontaneously after every experience, or rather, every experience happens against the background of silence. Okay, really, really good stuff in here. And again, I'll post this text, but I'd recommend if you're, as I see some of you doing writing a lot, maybe you should, get the book, because I just keep finding more and more. I open any questions. I'm open to any questions in these next couple of minutes, and I'll just kind of cap what we've been talking about a little bit here, and just say one more thing, which might be a nod more to what John Samuel was actually asking about. Maybe he's not struggling with fluidity of transition and the ability to be in one season and then another, and to I've been talking a lot about how do we maintain that sense of self through the different seasons and periods. How do we acknowledge what we're asking ourselves? Pam, 212 and 213, if you have the same version that I do. The section's called Be Indifferent to Pain and Pleasure. So I've been speaking a lot to that challenge of moving, still feeling like I am, when I go into from one phase to the next, right? I had a really hard time still feeling like myself when I went through the crisis of a divorce and leaving that home that, in the mountains. And as things shifted, I had to wonder, am I still me? Am I still? And that was the fear that I really couldn't handle. Everything else, I put one foot in front of the other. But I think that another thing that we might speak to next week, if people are interested in, is the challenge of taking the experiences. Yes, absolutely. No, I'm going to post all of it. Yeah. Um, Another thing that did come up as I was practicing is, or preparing for this, is how do we take the realizations that we have in our meditation and then translate them into action in our lives? And I think that really deserves its own treatment, which I won't get into today. But again, I love it. I love it. I love the questions, and I love it when there's a back and forth. And so um, I invite your questions in this moment, but also anyone who's watching this who wants uh, to say, oh, this is what it brings up for me. I would love for you to speak to this, or I would love to uh, see what your teachers say about this. I invite that. I think most people who are at least on live right now know this, but so for this whole year, we're going to be doing these online courses. And then in between, as we're in a little in between right now, I'll be keeping up our regular schedule. Live sessions are going to be just for founders in that in between, though I'm going to be making most recordings available for the public, which will also help, bring in new people. It's a way for you guys too, if you want to bring somebody into the March course and say, hey, you really want to check this out, they'll be able to come on to Know Our Village and see free stuff that's recent and kind of get a sense for what we do here. Um, and oh, great, I just got a comment from Sveta. I'll turn to that. But that in these in-between periods, I'm going to be doing just this. I'm going to be inviting your questions and responding to them in my little talks. I'm going to be referring back to the teachers and the teachings that really we've already been working with in the course before, and just kind of letting it be a time for contemplation and for integrating the work we've been doing. Okay. All right. Sveta says, just wanted to share that over the years, I've also been thinking about how to bring what I practice and learn during meditation into everyday life. It was frustrating to have these siloed, yeah, that's a great word, and or lose the effects that I can achieve during the mindfulness practice during the real life situations. Recently, I found a particular approach, one that does just that, taps into the depth of wisdoms and mental muscle that we train on the meditation cushions and pulls it into everyday life. Good. Yeah, Sveta. Great. So Sveta's offering to share that with us. Yeah. So Sveta, why don't you just make a little post and you and I can chat after this if you want. Yeah, Pamela's interested. Um, yeah, please share that with us. And that can be part of what we do our inquiry on in the next couple of weeks. On our way till March, it's a really great time for, anybody who has little posts they want to make uh, to share. Thank you, Sveta. We really, really need that. Noelle says, I need that. And Noelle is here, so I also just wanted to share at the end of today that Noelle made us our new beautiful logo. And Noelle, I'm still figuring out, I think there's something wrong on my end on the platform. It's not quite sitting in its circle perfectly, but we'll fix that. But the new site logo is from our incredibly talented and wonderful and loving member Noelle, as a gift to all of us. So there's a new site logo. And also she did the logo for Right Relationship. There's a hands Tao Te Ching symbol that she made. Thank you, Noelle. Isn't it beautiful? Um, okay, so I said that we would sit on the line for a little bit longer today and do a little bit of journaling. If you're watching the video, I'm not going to record this part. It'll be pretty boring, but but I invite you to, since often Wisdom Wednesdays, at least when we're in a course and we're doing a lot of content, they go longer. And something that I heard is on the feedback survey is that people want more time to process and more time to practice and integrate. And um, so I'm going to sign off on the video. Thanks to everybody for watching.